Everything that you call reality is nothing more than the outpicturing of your inner assumptions. What you assume to be true becomes the world you walk in. The secret lies not in striving or struggling, but in assuming, in imagining, and in living from the end. When you act as if nothing is impossible, you step beyond the limitations of the five senses and dwell in the unseen reality, the reality of consciousness. To act as if nothing is impossible is to rise in consciousness and claim the state you desire as though it were already yours. You do not wait for signs, for the outer to confirm the inner. You move in silence, in stillness, in certainty. You speak to yourself as the one who already is, not the one who hopes to be. Imagination is the only power that creates. What you dare to imagine, you can experience. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are not pretending in the outer world, you are shifting in the inner world. You are not hoping, it is already so. This assumption becomes the law that governs your life. Every event, every encounter, every circumstance begins to conform to your inner conviction. You may not know how or when, but the bridge of incidents will unfold, and what was once invisible becomes tangible. You do not concern yourself with effort. You do not beg or plead. You act as if, because your imagination is God in action. That which you assume to be true will harden into fact if you persist. You walk in the feeling, you speak from it, you think from it. To act as if nothing is impossible is to know that you are already the person you desire to be. And from that knowing, everything bends in your favor. If you were already the one you long to become, how would you speak? How would you carry yourself? What would you expect each day? Begin there, live there. React to life not as the person who is waiting, but as the person who already possesses the blessing. This is not arrogance. It is faith in the unseen. It is the law of consciousness, that what you are conscious of being, you become. Do not wait for evidence, create the evidence. Do not look for signs, become the sign. Every desire you hold was first imagined. The world you see is the shadow of your persistent assumption. Stop measuring what is possible by what has been. What has been was made by the same law that governs what will be. The present is not fixed, it is fluid, molded by your inner speech and feeling. Is you the highest? Act as if all things are within reach, for they are. Nothing is withheld from you when you realize that the only door you must unlock is within your own mind. You are not separated from what you seek. You are one with it, and your assumption is the bridge between where you stand and where you choose to be. Act as if nothing is impossible, and you awaken the power that always was. What you assume to be true, even if it appears to have no evidence in the outer world, becomes the reality that unfolds before you. Assumption is not wishful thinking. It is not a passive hope. It is a deep inner conviction. A knowing, even in the absence of physical proof, that what you accept as true in consciousness must express itself in your world. You are always assuming something. Every moment you are alive, your mind is active, entertaining beliefs, inner conversations, silent agreements with life. These assumptions become the seeds of your experience. Life does not happen to you randomly. It is shaped and molded by the quality of your assumptions. When you assume that something is possible, when you live in the state of that assumption, you align your inner world with the outcome you desire. This alignment becomes the creative force behind your experiences. If you assume that people are kind, life begins to mirror kindness back to you. If you assume you are always unlucky, the world reflects circumstances that validate that belief. The outer world is not separate from the inner world. It is the outpicturing of it. The law is always working, and it does not discriminate. It gives form to whatever you persistently assume to be true. Assumption works not because you force the world to change, but because you change the lens through which you see the world. Your thoughts, feelings, reactions, and expectations are rooted in these assumptions. They color every decision you make, every action you take. When you begin to assume that nothing is impossible for you, you enter a new dimension of life. Obstacles become irrelevant. Delays lose their power. You begin to walk with a sense of purpose and clarity, because you know that what you assume and persist in must externalize itself. This is not about controlling others or manipulating situations. It is about embodying the truth that consciousness is the only reality. Everything else is an echo, a shadow of that truth. If you assume wealth, not just think about it, but feel it, breathe it, walk in it, the world around you must conform. If you assume love, not from need or lack, but from wholeness and fulfillment, love finds its way into your experience. The bridge of incidents may be unpredictable, but the end is certain. Your assumption sets the destination, and life orchestrates the journey. You may wonder how something invisible, intangible like assumption can wield such power. The answer lies in understanding that consciousness is the source of all creation. Before there was any manifestation, there was first an idea, a thought, a belief. The invisible always precedes the visible. Assumption is the blueprint. Reality is the construction. The builder follows the blueprint without question. It is mechanical in its loyalty. Whatever you assume, with feeling and repetition, becomes embedded in your subconscious mind. And your subconscious then moves the world to reflect that image back to you. People often say they want to change their lives, but they rarely examine their assumptions. They may change jobs, cities, relationships, yet the same patterns reappear. Why? Because the assumption has not changed. You cannot escape your assumptions. They travel with you. They shape how you interpret every event, how you respond to every word spoken to you, how you see every opportunity. If you want a new life, you must form new assumptions. And these new assumptions must be lived in, felt real, and persisted in, regardless of appearances. This is the discipline. It requires awareness, persistence, and trust. You must be willing to believe in the unseen more than the seen. You must prioritize the world within over the world without. When doubt arises, you return to the assumption. When fear whispers, you affirm the truth of your inner knowing. You do not argue with appearances. You do not fight reality. You revise it from within. You assume what you desire to be true now, and you dwell in that assumption until it feels natural. Then the world, without fail, will mirror it. The moment you understand this law, you step into your creative power. You no longer beg for change, you command it through assumption, not through ego, but through awareness of who you really are. You are the operant power. Nothing happens until you assume it to be so. You do not need permission, you do not need proof. The proof comes after the assumption. The world is clay and your assumption is the mold. Every limitation you believe in, every condition you accept as final, is only so because you have assumed it. Even when it appears that the world contradicts your desire, do not be deceived. The outer world is always a delayed response to an old assumption. If you persist in a new assumption, it must replace the old. This is not magic, this is law. You do not have to figure out how it will happen. The how is not your concern. Your only responsibility is to sustain the assumption until the feeling of its reality becomes so natural, so normal, that it no longer feels like an effort. Children do this naturally. They imagine, they believe, they act without questioning whether it is realistic. They live in their assumptions, and for them the line between inner and outer is blurred. As adults, we learn to limit ourselves. We adopt the assumptions of those around us, the collective fear, the doubt, the logic that says things must happen in a certain way. But the moment you choose to discard those limiting assumptions and replace them with ones that empower you, you break free. Your future is not fixed. It is open, fluid, and subject to your assumptions. The most powerful question you can ask yourself is, what am I assuming to be true right now? And if you find that your assumption is rooted in lack, fear, doubt, or delay, change it. Not by force, but by imagining a new scene, a new story, a new version of yourself, and stepping into it boldly. Reality will follow. It has no choice. It is obedient to the command of your persistent assumption. Even if you fall back into old thinking, do not condemn yourself. Simply return to the new assumption. Each time you do, you impress it more deeply. Eventually, it becomes your natural state, and what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. To live from the end is to dwell in the feeling that your desire is already fulfilled, to let go of waiting and hoping, and to instead assume the position of having, being, and experiencing the thing longed for. It is a radical shift in consciousness, one that leaves behind the idea that your desire is somewhere out in the future, separate from you, and instead embraces the truth that creation is finished, and everything you seek already exists within you. Living from the end means identifying yourself not with the process, but with the result. You become the version of yourself who already possesses what you once wished for, and in doing so you cause the world to rearrange itself to match that new state of being. This state is not built on wishful thinking or shallow daydreaming. It is a conscious embodiment of the wish fulfilled, rooted in the imagination. When you live from the end, you close the gap between yourself and your desire. You stop affirming its absence and instead breathe, think, and walk in the awareness that it is already done. Every thought you have, every word you speak, every decision you make from that moment onward is influenced by the certainty that your desire is yours now. You stop looking to the outside world for confirmation and instead trust the internal world, where the real transformation occurs. There is a great difference between hoping for something and assuming it is already yours. Hope keeps it in the future. Hope waits. Living from the end acts. It affirms, it expresses, it moves in faith. The imagination is the workshop of creation, and by imagining yourself already in possession of your desire, you activate the unseen forces of your inner reality. You no longer look for signs that it's coming. You know that it is already here, in the only place that matters, within consciousness. The senses may deny it, but that does not concern you. You remain loyal to your inner world, and as you persist in this loyalty, the outer world is compelled to reflect it. This is not about pretending or faking something in a way that feels hollow. It is about aligning your entire being with the state you wish to occupy. If you desire success, you do not merely say, "I want to be successful someday." You ask, "How would I feel if I were already successful?" And then you anchor yourself in that feeling. You carry yourself with the confidence of someone who has already arrived. You take actions not to become successful, but as one who is already successful and is now merely unfolding that reality in time. When you live from the end lives through you. You become an embodiment of your dream. You feel the satisfaction of it in your heart, the relief of having it, the joy of experiencing it. You rehearse the scene inwardly until it feels so familiar that the line between imagination and reality disappears. The world outside must conform to the dominant state within. If you sustain the feeling of the wish fulfilled long enough, it becomes natural, automatic, your new home in consciousness. Then life, in its mysterious and beautiful way, brings about the bridge of incidents that carry you to the physical manifestation of that which you inwardly accepted as true. Living from the end also dissolves resistance. You are no longer trying to get something, you are resting in the knowing that you already have it. There is no effort, only alignment. No tension, only ease. You no longer struggle against current conditions or fight to force change. You simply remain faithful to the inner state and allow it to externalize itself in its own time and manner. You do not chase results because results are inevitable when the inner state is maintained. Your inner conversations shift when you live from the end. You stop arguing for your limitations. You no longer repeat old stories of why you can't have what you want. Instead, your self-talk becomes aligned with the reality you have chosen. You affirm, "This is who I am now." You feel it in your breath. You see it in your imagination. You react to the world not based on appearances, but based on your inner conviction. And slowly, subtly, then suddenly, the world bends to match your assumption. There is power in this practice, a quiet strength. It is not noisy or dramatic, it is deeply personal, often invisible to others. But you feel it within yourself, the steadiness, the knowing, the joy of already being where you once longed to be. This is the secret of transformation. It is not about trying to change what is. It is about assuming what will be is already now, and then trusting that everything else will follow. Living from the end means you let go of all need to control. You trust the process because you trust your inner state. You no longer ask, "When will it happen?" or "How will it come?" These questions lose their power over you. You are too busy living in the fulfillment to worry about the mechanics of its arrival. The end is already yours. And so, you walk with a different energy. You speak with calm assurance. You rest in the peace that comes from knowing that what is within must come without. The world responds not to your wish, but to your assumption. It doesn't matter what others see. It only matters what you see in your mind's eye. If you see it clearly and consistently, and you feel it deeply, and you return to it daily, then nothing can stop it from becoming real. When you imagine an outcome with full faith and dwell in its feeling, you create the mold. Reality, like molten metal, must pour itself into that mold. In this way, you become the master of your fate, not by effort, but by consciousness. You no longer plead with life, you declare what is true within you, and that inner declaration echoes through every corner of your experience until the entire world affirms what you first affirmed in silence. You are the creator and the created, the dreamer and the dream. To live from the end is to wake up and remember that you already are what you seek to become. All that remains is to remain loyal to that vision, to feed it with faith, and to watch as life confirms it with precision. When you act as if nothing is impossible, you must learn to trust your inner conviction more than the evidence presented by your five senses. The world of appearances is not the source of truth. It is merely the delayed reflection of previous assumptions. Outer evidence is always behind the scenes of consciousness. What you see, hear, touch, and experience today is the result of thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions you once held. It is the shadow of an inner state that has already passed. If you judge reality based on what is currently seen, you lock yourself into a cycle of repetition, constantly responding to the old, reinforcing what already exists, and thereby making it difficult to move forward into the new. The key to transformation lies in turning away from the visible and holding fast to your inner truth. Your conviction, your unwavering belief in the unseen, becomes the force that shapes the visible. To believe when there is no proof, to act in alignment with the desire that has not yet materialized, to speak with confidence in the middle of silence, this is the true test of creation. Faith is not belief in spite of evidence. It is the certainty that your assumption is real even if no one else can see it. It is not about what is. It is about what will inevitably become once consciousness leads the way. When you begin to live by inner conviction, your emotional world shifts. You are no longer tossed by every circumstance, every delay, every contradiction. You become stable, anchored in the truth that what you have assumed with persistence must become your reality. This certainty does not come from the world, it comes from within. It is a stillness, a quiet knowing, a sense of completion even in the middle of what seems incomplete. The world may say you can't have it. Your senses may echo that denial. But your assumption says, it is already done. And so you remain loyal to the end you have claimed, without wavering, without pleading, without compromise. This loyalty to your inner world must become your way of life. The mind will try to return to what is visible. The world will demand that you be realistic. But realism, as commonly understood, is simply the worship of appearances. It is bondage to what has already been created. True realism is seeing the invisible and honoring it as the real cause. You are not required to explain your inner conviction. You are not obligated to convince others of your assumption. All that is required is that you persist in it, dwell in it, and allow it to color your actions, your speech, your thoughts, and your feelings. To act in contradiction to what you feel within is to sabotage your own power. You cannot plant a seed and then dig it up each day to check its progress. You must trust the process. You must believe in the unfolding. When the inner conviction is strong enough, the outer world begins to shift in subtle and then unmistakable ways. You meet people who seem divinely aligned with your desire. Opportunities open that you never could have planned. Circumstances rearrange themselves as if responding to your internal command, and yet none of it feels forced. It happens with ease because it is the natural outflow of an established inner state. The temptation to be ruled by appearances is strong, especially when the desire is great and time appears to pass without result. But if you yield to appearances, if you let what is dictate what will be, you fall into the trap of reaction. You become a follower rather than a creator. But if you hold firm, if you close your eyes to what is and open your inner eye to what must be, then the law begins to work in your favor. You will begin to realize that the outer world is not solid or fixed. It is responsive, fluid, obedient to the inner command of consciousness. When you feel discouraged, return to the inner scene. Remind yourself of the state you have assumed. Re-enter the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Speak from it, not about it. Do not ask, will it happen? Ask instead, how would I feel now that it has happened? And then dwell in that answer. That feeling is the key. It is the evidence of things not seen. It is the assurance of your reality. As you persist in that feeling, your assumption becomes fact. The bridge of incidence appears, not through your effort, but through the silent operation of consciousness, aligning itself with your belief. The outer world has no choice. It must reflect the inner state you dwell in. It has no power to defy your sustained assumption. It may delay, but it cannot deny. You may not know the path, but the path is not yours to decide. Your role is to live in the end, to trust the unseen, and to never surrender your conviction to the tyranny of facts. The facts are only true as long as you consent to them. Change your assumption, and you begin to dissolve the old facts and create new ones. This is the way of the creative individual, not to argue with appearances, but to ignore them when they contradict the desire, not to resist reality, but to reshape it from the inside out. You are not here to be a victim of the visible, but a master of the invisible. When you understand this, you will stop looking for signs and start becoming the sign. You will stop needing permission and start giving yourself authority. And in this authority, in this deep inner certainty, you will discover the great secret that the world outside is no more powerful than the world within, and that your conviction, your faithful, persistent assumption has the final word. Imagination is the only power that creates. Everything you see around you, everything you experience in your world, began first in the unseen realm of thought, of feeling, of imagination. Before the house was built, someone imagined it. Before the invention was made, someone saw it in their mind. Before the success appeared, someone lived it internally. Imagination is not a trivial pastime. It is the divine workshop of creation, the place where the invisible is shaped and formed into the visible. All things are made twice, first in the unseen, then in the seen. Imagination is the womb of reality. When you understand that imagination is not a shadow of reality, but the very source of it, you begin to treat it with reverence. You no longer brush off your daydreams or dismiss your inner visions as fantasy. Instead, you realize they are the blueprint of what will come. The world outside is a delayed echo, a reflection of what has already been claimed within. Your world is not happening to you randomly. It is responding to the dominant images and emotional states you hold in your imagination. The pictures you entertain, the scenes you rehearse, the moods you embody, these are the silent architects of your life. Most people use their imagination unconsciously. They worry, they fear, they replay negative scenarios, and they do not realize that these mental activities are creative. They think they are merely reacting to life, but in truth they are shaping it. The power of imagination is impartial. It gives form to whatever is impressed upon it with feeling, attention, and repetition. The law does not discriminate between what is wanted and what is feared. It simply accepts what you dwell upon as your chosen reality and moves to externalize it. This is why your awareness is everything. Where your attention goes, your energy flows, and where your energy flows, your world takes shape. You must become the guardian of your imagination, choosing carefully the thoughts you permit, the images you feed, the stories you repeat to yourself. You do not need to fight against the outer world. You only need to persist in a new inner image. Over time, that inner image crystallizes into experience. Imagination becomes even more powerful when it is combined with feeling. Feeling is the fuel that ignites the image. When you imagine a scene with vivid detail and emotional involvement, you impress it upon your subconscious. And the subconscious, which is the servant of imagination, begins to move all things necessary to bring that image to life. You may not know how or when it will happen, but that is not your concern. Your only task is to feel it real, to accept it inwardly, and to persist in it faithfully. The quotation, humanis polesas humani vedi. You do not need the permission of the world to create. You do not need circumstances to align before you begin to believe. You only need to imagine boldly, freely, consistently. Let your mind be a sanctuary of possibility. Let your inner conversations reflect the life you wish to live. Let your day be filled with silent, joyful rehearsals of your fulfilled desire. What you imagine and accept as true with feeling must eventually take form. Imagination is more real than the facts that confront you. The facts are merely the footprints of past assumptions. They are not fixed, they can be changed, and the tool that changes them is imagination. You are not bound to the conditions you see. You are not defined by the circumstances you inherited. You are not limited by the world outside, unless you first limit yourself within. The moment you dare to imagine something greater and believe in it, you open the door to a new reality. People will often say, be realistic, but realism is often just a polite word for fear. It is a way of saying, don't expect too much, or stay within the bounds of what has already been proven. But nothing new is ever created from realism. All great changes, all breakthroughs, all miracles begin in the mind of someone who imagined something others could not see. Imagination reaches beyond the facts and calls forth a new order. It breaks the rules of probability and creates a new pattern based on belief, not evidence. There is no limit to what imagination can do, except the limits you place on it. If you can see it in your mind and feel it in your heart, it is possible. You may be tempted to dismiss the power of imagination because the results are not immediate. But this process is not instantaneous, it is progressive. Just as the seed does not become a tree overnight, your inner assumptions unfold gradually into form. The key is persistence. The more you return to the image, the more natural it becomes. The more natural it becomes, the more inevitable its appearance. There is no force outside of you dictating your life. The power is within you, and imagination is its instrument. If you want to change your life, change your imagination. Do not try to fix the outer world directly. That is like rearranging the shadow rather than turning toward the light. Instead, go inward. Create a new scene. Step into it with feeling. Make it vivid, sensory, believable. See it, hear it, touch it in your mind. Let it become your new home. And then walk in that inner world as though it were the only world that exists. What you entertain within with persistence and emotion must show itself in your external life. This is not theory, it is law. It has worked for those who believed and persisted, and it will work for you if you dare to trust your imagination above all else. When you honor your inner world, the outer world rises to meet it. When you invest in the unseen, the seen begins to shift. There is no greater power, no deeper truth. Imagination is the source of all that is, all that has been, and all that will ever be. When you claim this power, you no longer wait for change. You become the cause of it. You are not separate from what you desire. The moment you conceive of a thing, the moment a longing or vision arises within you, it means it already exists as a potential reality within your consciousness. Desire is not a signal of absence. It is the whisper of something already prepared for you in the unseen realm. The idea that you must earn, chase, or beg for your dream implies separation, but in truth, the only distance between you and your desire is your own state of consciousness. When you shift that state, when you move into alignment with the feeling of having it, the illusion of separation dissolves. You are one with your desire because you and your imagination are not two separate things. Your imagination is the place where your desires are born, and therefore the place where they already live. Most people live in a constant state of trying. They try to become successful, try to become loved, try to attract wealth or health or peace. But trying reinforces the belief that you are not yet what you wish to be. And what you believe, you experience. The law is simple. You experience what you are conscious of being. If you are always conscious of becoming, you are forever in the process, never arriving. To break the cycle, you must move into the assumption that you already are what you seek. That is the secret hidden in plain sight. You must occupy the state mentally, emotionally, spiritually, even if nothing in the outer world has changed. That assumption, once persistently held, is the creative force that causes your reality to mirror it. To be one with your desire is to identify yourself as already possessing the thing you long for. It means you stop visualizing it as something far away or outside of yourself. Instead, you begin to see yourself as the person who already has it, is it, lives it. This is more than imagination. It is identification. You feel the joy, the relief, the confidence that naturally arises when something is no longer desired, but claimed. You walk differently. You speak with more certainty. You respond to life from a different center. The world, without even knowing why, begins to treat you in accordance with your new identity. You are not required to make your desire happen. That burden does not belong to you. Your role is not to figure out the steps, manipulate the outcomes, or beg life for miracles. Your only role is to occupy the consciousness of the wish fulfilled, knowing that all necessary movements in the world will follow. Circumstances, people, and opportunities will be drawn to you because of the magnetic nature of your inner state. You are conscious of being, you radiate. And what you radiate, you attract. This is not superstition. It is the principle of alignment. There is no need to beg the universe, no need to convince yourself over and over that something might happen. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And what you are is determined by your self-concept, your consistent assumptions about yourself and your world. If you believe you are separate from your desire, it will continue to elude you. If you believe you are one with it, it must manifest. You become the cause. You become the starting point of a new chain of events. Life bends itself around your state of being. To practice this, begin by stepping into the feeling of already having what you want. If it were true, how would you think? How would you react to challenges? What choices would you make? Begin to live from those answers. Let them guide your decisions. Let them inform your posture, your speech, your energy. This is not make-believe. This is self-creation. You are not pretending. You are choosing. You are not fantasizing. You are creating. You are not hoping. You are becoming. There is no distance between you and your dream except in your own belief. That distance is not physical, it is psychological. It exists only in the mind. And the moment you dissolve the idea of waiting, striving, or someday, and instead assume the truth of now, you collapse the distance. You unify with the thing sought. That unity is what causes the outer world to mirror the inner change. The external reality cannot help but reflect what has been fully accepted within. Even when the senses contradict your assumption, you must remain faithful to it. The outer world is always a step behind, it lags, but if you persist, if you do not let appearances shake your inner knowing, they will begin to change. What once seemed impossible will appear inevitable. The people who doubted you will wonder how it happened, but you will know the truth. You changed nothing outside, you changed within. You stepped into union with your desire, and the rest unfolded naturally. This way of being is not reserved for a chosen few. It is not about special talents or perfect conditions. It is a universal law, and it responds to all who use it with awareness and discipline. You may not have seen results yet because you have not persisted long enough in the assumption of fulfillment. You may have let your senses convince you of separation, but that can change now. You can at any moment abandon the old state and enter the new. You do not need to ask anyone. You do not need permission. You only need willingness. Willingness to feel differently. Willingness to trust what cannot yet be seen. Willingness to imagine more boldly, more vividly, more consistently. The world will follow. Your desire is not on a distant mountain or locked away by fate. It is as close as your next thought, your next feeling, your next breath. The only work is to live from the place where the desire is already real, to rest in the knowing that the outer world cannot help but conform to the image you persistently hold within. You are not on a journey to get something. You are returning to who you already are. You and your desire are not two. They are one. Act as if you are not accessible. Withdraw your attention from the world that clamors for it. You do not need to be reachable, explainable, or understood by everyone. The world seeks your attention to maintain its illusion, but you have something more powerful within you, your imagination. When you act as if you are not accessible, you are not ignoring the world, you are simply choosing where to dwell. You are choosing to inhabit the state of your desire. Every state you assume has its own reactions, its own outcomes, and its own atmosphere. The state of being constantly available belongs to the self that doubts, the self that seeks approval, the self that fears missing out. But the self that knows, the self that is anchored in its wish fulfilled, does not need to check, to explain, to justify, or to beg for recognition. It is content in its knowing. It is secure in its assumption. When you remove yourself from the noise, you are not being arrogant. You are being intentional. You are no longer responding to appearances. You are no longer playing the part others cast for you. Instead, you have cast yourself in the role you desire to play, and you remain in character, unmoved by the script of the old story. The world reflects back what you accept as true. So if you walk as though you are already the version of yourself you long to be, the world will conform. But that version of you is not constantly explaining, proving, or doubting. That version walks with quiet confidence. That version understands the sacred power of selective attention. To act as if you are not accessible is to recognize that your power lies not in being everywhere, not in being available to all, but in being true to the state you have chosen. You are not ignoring reality. You are reordering it from within. Silence is not empty, it is creation in motion. Privacy is not absence, it is incubation. When you are not accessible, you are dwelling in your chosen reality, allowing it to mature, to solidify, to take root. Your assumption is your permission. What you do not give attention to cannot persist in your world, so become unavailable to doubt. Become inaccessible to fear. Refuse to entertain anything that contradicts your chosen reality. And in that sacred stillness, you will find the echoes of your assumption becoming form. Your assumption is your authority. You do not need permission from the world. Your inner acceptance is the only requirement for external change. Withdraw your attention from the external world, for it is only a reflection of your past assumptions. The world you see, the people you interact with, the circumstances you find yourself in, these are not the source of power, they are the echo. And the echo does not shape the voice. It simply repeats what has already been spoken. So many become lost in reacting to the world, trying to fix, change, and manage the outer, without understanding that the outer is nothing more than a shadow, a projection. If the shadow seems distorted, one must adjust the light, not chase the image on the wall. The truth is, what you observe with your senses is not permanent. It is not even the ultimate reality. It is simply a crystallized manifestation of where your attention has dwelled. When you withdraw that attention and redirect it inward, you reclaim your authorship. You no longer move about life as a victim of circumstance, but as the dreamer of the dream. And a dreamer does not need to manipulate the dream by force. They only need to shift their inner state. Attention is creative. Where you place it, you give life. If you give your attention to fear, you animate fear. If you give your attention to lack, you empower it. And if you constantly allow the world to tug at your focus, to demand responses, reactions, defenses, you lose your stillness, your clarity, and your power. The outer world becomes a master, and you become its servant. But the moment you recognize that you are the operant power, you realize you no longer need to respond to everything that calls your name. When something in the outer appears unwanted, whether it be a person's opinion, a financial strain, or a delay in what you desire, you must learn the discipline of inner withdrawal. This does not mean ignoring responsibilities or denying reality. It means refusing to give emotional energy to anything that does not align with your chosen state. It means choosing not to dwell in fear, worry, or reactivity. It means quietly remembering, this is only a reflection. I can shift it from within. So much energy is wasted trying to fix the mirror while ignoring the face. But when you realize that the mirror must reflect what you assume is true, you stop trying to control the reflection and start working on the source. Your inner world, your imagination, your emotions, these are the true tools of transformation. And they are only sharpened in silence, in stillness, in privacy. The more you seek validation from the outside, the more you delay your manifestation. The more you react to what you see, the more you reinforce the very thing you want to change. There is a sacred power in withdrawing attention from what no longer serves you. When you no longer respond to insults, you dissolve their power. When you no longer chase approval, you discover self-approval. When you no longer cling to appearances, you give birth to new possibilities. This is not coldness, it is clarity. It is not indifference, it is inner dominion. You are not here to chase, fix, or prove. You are here to create, and creation begins in consciousness. When you understand that the outer world is always playing catch-up to your inner state, you stop treating it as the authority, you stop explaining yourself, you stop looking for signs, you start being the sign. You walk in the assumption that what you desire is already yours, and you let the world conform in its own time. You do not rush it, you do not monitor it, you trust the law of assumption more than the evidence of your senses. To withdraw attention from the external world is to return home to yourself. It is to become intimate with your own imagination, with your own feelings, with your own inner conversations. It is in this invisible realm where all things are born. And if you nurture this inner space, protect it from distractions, and feed it with the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you will see the outer world reassemble to match it. But if you constantly leak energy through worry, comparison, and needing to be accessible to all, you scatter the very power meant to bring your desire into form. Not everyone needs access to your energy. Not every situation deserves your attention. You do not owe the world your constant availability. What you owe is your commitment to the life you truly desire. And that life can only be born through focused imagination, through deliberate withdrawal from what is, and total immersion in what can be. To the outer world, this may appear as distance. It may look like aloofness, but to the inner world, it is devotion. It is presence. It is alignment. The one who masters their attention masters their reality. So the next time you feel the pull to react, to explain, to argue, to fix, pause, return inward. Ask yourself, is this worthy of my energy? If it does not align with your vision, it is not your truth. And if it is not your truth, let it dissolve in your silence. Let it fade in your non-reaction. Let it pass like a cloud in the sky, while you remain rooted in the sun of your assumption. Your world will shift, not because you chased the change, but because you became unavailable to anything less than the life you've already claimed within. Assume the identity of your desired self. Not someday, not when circumstances improve, but now, in this very moment, you have the power to occupy a new state of consciousness. And that state, once fully accepted and lived in, will begin to reflect itself outwardly in ways that seem miraculous to those who do not understand the law. But there is no miracle, only a shift in awareness. A shift so complete, so embodied, that the outer world must conform. You are not trying to become something. You already are. Creation is finished. All possible versions of you exist now in this eternal present. You are not climbing a ladder to your ideal self, you are selecting it. You are moving into it by feeling your way into its atmosphere. And how do you do this? By assuming it is already yours. Not hoping, not wishing, but living from it, thinking from it, feeling from it, acting from it, responding to life as though it were already done. When you assume the identity of your desired self, you begin to carry a new frequency. The world, being only a mirror, reflects this new self back to you. The people you meet, the situations you attract, the opportunities that unfold, all begin to match the state you are in. You are not making anything happen by force, you are magnetizing it through being. This is why imagination is so powerful, because the inner scene you play again and again, if accepted as true, begins to create a vibration within you. And that vibration is not passive, it is creative. It moves through the layers of your world and organizes your reality to mirror it. But the key is not in seeing the desire from a distance. The key is in becoming it. You must think the thoughts of the one who already has it. You must speak as they speak, move as they move, respond as they respond. This is not pretending, it is aligning. Pretending implies doubt. It implies you are playing a part that is not truly yours. But assumption is different. Assumption means ownership. It means embodiment. It means you walk into the scene and say, this is mine. And then you let go of how or when it must come, because you know it already is. The outer world is simply catching up with your inner claim. So many people wait for the evidence before they assume the state. But the law does not work that way. Evidence follows assumption. Circumstance follows identity. When you assume the identity of someone who is loved, confident, wealthy, healthy, or at peace, you are not trying to get those things. You are being the version of yourself who naturally attracts and experiences them. And this is why you must be mindful of what state you are occupying, not just for moments of the day, but consistently. The question is not, will I get what I want? The real question is, who am I being? Because who you are being in consciousness is what creates your world. If you walk through the day thinking from your old self, doubting, fearing, comparing, then no matter how much effort you apply on the outside, you are still planting the same seeds. The fruits may look different, but the roots are the same. But if you shift your inner dialogue, if you assume a new identity with conviction, then even if the outer world looks unchanged for a while, the seed has been planted in new soil, and it must grow. You are not required to know how it will unfold. You are only required to remain faithful to the state. That is your only job, to live and think and feel from your end as if it were already here. And that inner faith will carry you. It will guide your steps, align your actions, and open doors where there were none. This is not about denial of what appears, but detachment from it. You may look around and see the opposite of what you desire, but if you have truly assumed your new identity, that outer appearance becomes irrelevant. It is just an echo of the past, and it will fade, as all echoes do. You do not need to fight it. You do not need to argue with it. You simply remain loyal to your inner state. You persist in the assumption, and that persistence becomes your reality. So begin now, not tomorrow, not when conditions feel perfect. Begin in this moment to live from the self you desire to be. Ask yourself, how would I think, speak, and feel if it were already true? And then do that, be that. Let your imagination become more real to you than your senses. Let your inner world take priority. And as you do, your assumption will harden into fact. There is no need to force change. Identity is the cause, everything else is effect. And when you operate from the cause, when you shift who you are being, the effects must follow. They have no choice. Let the old story fall away. You do not need to explain it, revisit it, or fix it. You are not here to fight the past. You are here to create the new. And the new is born in assumption. When you fully accept that you are now the version of yourself who already has what you desire, the world rearranges. It does not delay out of punishment. It delays only when you doubt, when you waver, when you shift back and forth between old and new. Choose now. And keep choosing, not by willpower, but by quiet confidence, by trust in the unseen, by devotion to your inner world. The more you live from your desired identity, the more natural it becomes. And soon, it will no longer feel like an assumption. It will feel like the only truth you've ever known. You do not need to become, you only need to assume. And let everything else follow. Selective attention is sacred. The way you direct your focus determines the world that unfolds before you. There is immense power in deciding where your energy flows, because the world around you is a mirror of your inner state. What you choose to attend to, what you choose to engage with, emotionally, mentally, and energetically, shapes your reality. If you want to transform your life, you must learn the art of selective attention, choosing what to give energy to and what to let pass by unnoticed. Most people are conditioned to react to everything that comes their way, to engage with whatever the world throws at them, whether it aligns with their desires or not. This constant reactivity to external circumstances weakens your inner power and causes you to feel as though life is happening to you instead of through you. But when you learn to direct your focus with purpose, you shift from being a passive participant in your reality to an active creator of it. You recognize that you are not bound by the circumstances of the outer world, but instead are the master of what you choose to pay attention to. The world is full of distractions, and it is easy to get caught up in them. News, social media, opinions of others, old memories, worries about the future. All of these are pulls on your attention. But you are not obligated to give your energy to everything that demands it. Just because something is in front of you, just because something appears in your reality, does not mean it deserves your attention. In fact, many of these distractions are simply reflections of past beliefs and assumptions that no longer serve you. They are echoes of your previous state of consciousness, and the more you respond to them, the longer they persist. To change the reflection, you must change the focus. Selective attention is a conscious choice. It is the ability to decide what is worthy of your energy and what is not. This does not mean ignoring the outer world, nor does it mean living in denial of what is happening around you. What it means is choosing to respond from a place of power, choosing to engage with only that which aligns with your vision, your desires, and your higher self. It means refusing to be drawn into the drama, the negativity, or the distractions that do not serve your growth or purpose. In practice, selective attention means learning to disengage from thoughts, situations, and people that do not match the state of being you wish to embody. When you are confronted with a negative thought or situation, you have the power to shift your focus. You can choose to redirect your energy inward, to remind yourself of the state you are cultivating, and to refuse to give attention to what does not support it. This may require discipline, as the habit of reacting to external stimuli is deeply ingrained, but it is essential for transformation. Each time you consciously redirect your attention, you strengthen your power to shape your reality. The key is to realize that everything you focus on becomes amplified. Every thought, every feeling, every action you give attention to grows in your life. When you focus on lack, you reinforce the belief in lack. When you focus on fear, you strengthen the feeling of fear. But when you choose to focus on abundance, gratitude, love, and your desired outcome, you shift the energy toward the realization of those states. This is why it is so important to be discerning about where you place your attention. The more you focus on what you want, the more it becomes your experience. The more you focus on what you do not want, the more it persists. Selective attention is not about controlling or manipulating the external world. It is about mastering your inner world. It is about recognizing that the outer world is merely a reflection of your inner state, and that the most effective way to change your outer circumstances is to first change what you're paying attention to on the inside. If you want to experience peace, then give your attention to peace. If you want to experience love, focus on love. If you want to experience success, direct your energy toward thoughts, actions, and people who align with that vision. The more you practice this, the more the world around you begins to mirror these inner shifts. Another important aspect of selective attention is the ability to filter out negativity. This does not mean ignoring challenges or pretending that difficulties do not exist. Life will always present challenges, but it is how you respond to them that matters. You do not need to dwell on every problem or engage with every criticism. Instead, you can choose to respond from a place of calm, focus, and inner strength. You can decide that no matter what is happening in the outer world, your inner world will remain steady, aligned with your highest vision. By refusing to give attention to what disturbs your peace, you retain your power to influence the direction of your life. Learning to selectively attend to what supports your desires requires mindfulness and awareness. It is about becoming conscious of the thoughts, feelings, and circumstances you are engaging with. In a world that is constantly pulling you in different directions, it can be easy to lose track of where your energy is going. But by practicing mindfulness, you begin to notice when you are giving energy to things that do not serve you. Once you become aware of where your attention is flowing, you can consciously redirect it to thoughts, people, and actions that are in alignment with the life you want to create. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Every moment you spend focusing on something is a moment spent creating that thing in your life. The more you focus on what you desire, the more it becomes real. The more you focus on what you fear or do not want, the more it remains in your experience. The choice is yours. You have the power to direct your attention wherever you choose, and that is where your power lies. When you learn to be selective about where you place your energy, you will find that your reality begins to shift in profound ways. The more you focus on what brings you joy, what aligns with your purpose, and what supports your vision, the more these things begin to manifest in your life. And just as importantly, the more you withdraw attention from what does not serve you, the less power it will have over you. You are the master of your attention, and through it, you are the master of your life. Silence and privacy are creative tools. In a world that is constantly bustling, demanding, and pulling at your attention, the power of silence is often overlooked. But it is in these moments of stillness that creation happens. When you allow yourself the space to step back from the noise, from the distractions, from the endless cycle of inputs and outputs, you return to the source of all creativity, your own mind, your own inner world. Silence is not an absence, it is a presence. It is the fertile soil from which all things grow, and it is only in this space that true transformation can take place. When we talk about privacy, we are not just referring to physical space, though that is important. Privacy also speaks to the mental and emotional space you cultivate in your life. It is about protecting your inner world from the constant barrage of external influences, opinions, expectations, judgments, and the noise of the world that tries to dictate how you should think, feel, or act. Privacy is a sacred space where you can reflect, realign, and focus solely on the vision you are creating for your life, free from distractions and interruptions. Without this space, without the ability to retreat into your own mind, you are constantly at the mercy of the world around you. You are simply reacting rather than creating. When you learn to value silence, you begin to recognize that you are not defined by the external world. The external world is a reflection of your inner state, and in order to change it, you must first create a new inner reality. Silence gives you the opportunity to retreat into that reality, to focus on your thoughts and feelings, and to nurture the vision you are cultivating for your life. It is in these quiet moments that your imagination becomes your most powerful tool. Imagination is the bridge between the unseen world and the world of form. And it is only when you allow yourself the silence to truly feel and experience the desired state that this bridge becomes active and powerful. Privacy, in this sense, becomes the sacred space where you have the freedom to imagine without limitation, to dream without the interference of doubt or fear. It is in privacy that you are free to be your truest self, unburdened by the expectations and judgments of others. Without privacy, you would be constantly shaped and influenced by the opinions of those around you, unable to fully hear your own voice, your own desires, your own calling. Privacy creates a space for you to connect with your deepest truths, to align with your highest purpose, and to shape your world from the inside out. When you embrace silence and privacy, you are also creating the space for your desires to form. The outer world reflects your inner state, and the more you dwell in silence, in privacy, the more you tune into the frequency of your desires. In this space, your imagination is free to soar without constraint. You can picture yourself living the life you desire, experiencing the relationships, success, and abundance that you crave. And because silence allows you to feel the emotions associated with that life, you are planting the seeds of creation. The more you immerse yourself in the feeling of your desired outcome, the more it begins to take root in your life. In our fast-paced world, silence is often viewed as a void, a space to be filled with noise, distractions, or action. But in reality, silence is the space of potential, of possibility. It is where all new creation begins. Just as a seed needs the darkness of the soil to germinate, your desires need the privacy and stillness of your inner world to grow. If you constantly fill your mind with noise and distractions, if you constantly seek external validation or confirmation, you are preventing your desires from taking root. You are not giving them the privacy they need to grow and flourish. Just as you would not expose a seed to harsh winds and glaring sunlight before it is ready, you must not expose your desires to the noise of the external world before they have had a chance to form and solidify in your inner world. The power of silence is also in its ability to connect you to your intuition, to that quiet inner voice that knows the way forward. When you are constantly bombarded by the opinions and advice of others, it can be difficult to hear your own inner guidance. But when you embrace silence, you create the space to listen to yourself, to trust your instincts, and to align with the path that is right for you. In these quiet moments, you will receive insights, ideas, and inspiration that can guide you to your highest potential. These moments of silence are not wasted. They are the moments when you are aligning with your true self, when you are becoming more attuned to the vibration of your desires, and when you are most likely to receive the guidance that will lead you to your goals. When you are in a state of privacy and silence, you also cultivate a sense of peace. In a world filled with constant noise and distractions, peace becomes a rare and precious commodity. But peace is not something that comes from the external world, it is something that you create from within. It is in the silence that you find the peace that allows your desires to unfold effortlessly. The more you embrace silence and privacy, the more you align with the flow of life, the more you allow the natural unfolding of your desires. You are no longer forcing, striving, or struggling. You are simply being in the present moment, trusting that the universe will deliver what you have already claimed in your inner world. Silence and privacy also help you create the necessary mental and emotional space to detach from negative thoughts, old patterns, and limiting beliefs. The external world often bombards us with messages of scarcity, fear, and limitation, but when you step into silence, you step away from these influences. You create the space to clear your mind, to release the old thought patterns that no longer serve you, and to replace them with thoughts that align with your desires. In this quiet space, you are free to reprogram your mind, to step into a new identity, and to create the life you truly want. In conclusion, silence and privacy are not just about withdrawing from the world. They are about reconnecting with your true self, with your own inner power. They are about creating the space in which your desires can grow, in which your imagination can flourish, and in which your inner guidance can lead the way. Silence is not an absence, it is a presence. It is the creative force that enables you to shape your reality from the inside out. And privacy is the sacred space in which that creation takes place. By embracing silence and privacy, you align with your true self and the flow of life, and you allow the universe to bring your desires into being. The act of assuming the state of the person you wish to become is the most transformative practice you can engage in. It is the essence of creation itself. When you assume the identity of the person you desire to be, you are no longer waiting for the outer world to change or for your circumstances to align with your wishes. Instead, you are changing your internal state, and that change ripples outward into the world, shaping the events, people, and situations around you. This is not about pretending or imagining in a fleeting, wishful way. It is about embodying the reality that you are seeking to create as if it were already a fact. The moment you fully assume your new identity, you align your thoughts, your actions, and your feelings with that state, and the outer world must conform to this new truth. When you assume the state of the person you want to become, you shift your consciousness and stop identifying with the person you have been. The past is irrelevant because the identity you now hold is who you are becoming, not who you were. This assumption does not require external validation because you are no longer seeking proof from the outside world. You have already accepted in your inner world that you are the person you want to be. The key is in the acceptance. You must accept fully and completely that you are already that person and that the outer world is merely catching up with your new belief. To truly embody this new identity, you must first change the way you think. Your thoughts are the building blocks of your reality, and they must now align with your new state of being. If you desire to be confident, for example, you must think the thoughts of a confident person. You must stop thinking of yourself as insecure or unworthy and begin thinking from the perspective of someone who knows their value and acts with certainty. The same applies to any quality or state of being you wish to cultivate. Whether it is health, wealth, love, or success, your thoughts must reflect the belief that you are already living in that state. The thoughts you entertain create the vibration that you send out into the universe, and that vibration attracts matching experiences into your life. Along with changing your thoughts, you must also change your feelings. The emotional state you cultivate is just as important, if not more so, than the thoughts you think. Feelings are the energy that drives your thoughts and actions. When you assume the state of someone who is already living their desired life, you must feel the emotions of that person. If you desire to be wealthy, for example, you must feel abundant, regardless of your current financial situation. If you want to experience love, you must feel loved even if you are currently single. The feeling of already having what you desire is the key to manifesting it into your reality. It is not enough to think the right thoughts, you must also align your emotions with those thoughts, creating a harmonious vibration that sends a clear message to the universe about what you are ready to receive. Actions also play a crucial role in the assumption of your new identity. When you assume the state of the person you want to become, you must act as they would act. This does not mean forcing yourself to take actions before you feel ready, but rather responding to life in a way that aligns with the identity you are assuming. You will find that as you begin to think and feel from your new state of being, the appropriate actions will naturally follow. You may find yourself making decisions with greater clarity, pursuing opportunities that align with your desires, and taking steps that lead you closer to your goals. The more you act in alignment with your new identity, the more it becomes ingrained in your subconscious mind, and the more natural it will feel to embody this new version of yourself. One of the most powerful aspects of assuming the state of your desired self is that you begin to attract circumstances that match your new identity. The outer world is a reflection of your inner state, and when you change the way you think, feel, and act, the universe has no choice but to align with your new vibration. People, situations, and opportunities will appear in your life that support the identity you are embodying. It is not about forcing the world to conform to your desires, but about becoming the version of yourself that naturally draws those desires into your life. The more you assume the state of your desired self, the more your external world will begin to mirror that assumption. Your environment will reflect the energy you are putting out, and as your internal state shifts, the external world will shift with it. This is the power of assumption. It is a law that governs the universe. What you believe to be true on the inside must be reflected on the outside. But the key is that you must believe it before you see it. You must embody your desired state as though it is already yours. This requires faith and trust in the unseen. You may not have evidence in the physical world that your desires are coming to fruition, but your inner world is the most powerful tool you have. When you truly assume the state of the person you want to be, you are not waiting for evidence to appear. You are creating the evidence with your thoughts, feelings, and actions. In order to fully embrace this power, you must also be willing to let go of the old story that has defined you up until this point. Your past experiences, your past failures, your old beliefs. They are all part of the old identity you are shedding. If you continue to hold on to the story of who you have been, you will continue to recreate that reality. But when you let go of the past and embrace the new identity you are assuming, you open the door to infinite possibilities. You are no longer bound by past limitations, but are free to step into the version of yourself who already has everything you desire. It is important to remember that the process of assumption is not a one-time event. It is a continual practice. Every moment is an opportunity to reaffirm your new identity, to align your thoughts, feelings, and actions with your desired state. You must persist in assuming the state of the person you wish to become, even when external circumstances seem to contradict it. The more you persist in this assumption, the more real it becomes, both to you and to the world around you. As you continue to live from your new identity, the outer world will begin to shift, and you will find that the life you desire is unfolding before you. Assumption is the most powerful tool you have in shaping your reality. It is the key to creating the life you desire, because it aligns your inner world with your outer experiences. When you assume the state of the person you wish to become, you are not only changing your thoughts and feelings, but you are changing your very vibration. And as your vibration changes, the world around you must reflect that change. Every time you assume the state of your desired self, you are taking one step closer to the life you want to create. Keep assuming, keep embodying, and watch as your world transforms in alignment with your new identity. Law your reality. No matter what the world seems to reflect, no matter how loud the evidence of your senses may shout at you, none of it has power unless you give it power. You are not here to bow to the facts of the world. You are here to reshape them. Everything you see now is simply the shadow cast by your former beliefs. It is not truth. It is not final. It is a reflection, and like all reflections, it can change when the source changes. The source is your imagination. To assume the state you desire is not delusion, it is creation. You are not ignoring the truth. You are selecting a higher one. You are not escaping life, you are choosing which version of life you wish to occupy. The world responds not to what you want, but to what you consent to be true. So assume it. Assume you are already the one you long to be. Walk in that knowing. Feel from it. Let it occupy your mind, your emotions, your conversations, your silence. Reality as it stands may tempt you to react. It may lure you to return to the familiar pattern of accepting what is seen, what is heard, what is declared by the world around you. But your power lies in refusal, not a denial of existence, but a denial of its authority over your imagination. You must practice the sacred art of inner blindness, to close the outer eyes and open the inner ones, to see not with reason but with faith, to feel the unseen as real and dismiss the seen as transient. If you continue to return to the senses for validation, you will live as a servant to their report. But if you persist in your assumption, regardless of appearances, the world must bend. It must take the shape of your inner conviction. It has no choice. The outer is clay, the inner is the mold. Most reverse this and live trapped. But you have been given the gift of choice. The moment you assume a new state, something begins to stir. The law is at work. What you assume, you become. The mind that assumes is the mind that creates. So assume health while sick, assume wealth while poor, assume love while lonely, not because the outer world gives permission, but because you give yourself permission. The outer follows, it does not lead. Remain faithful to your assumption. Marry it. Let it live in you so completely that the old you no longer exists. The longer you dwell in it, the more natural it becomes. What once felt like fantasy begins to feel like memory. And when that moment arrives, when the assumption feels normal, the world must mirror it. It will come gently or with force, but it will come. Do not seek signs. Do not look for proof. Do not ask when or how. Those are the questions of doubt. Assume and it is done. Assume and feel as though it already is. Enter the state and abide there. The old world may scream, it may fight for attention, but remain unmoved. That is your test. To feel rich while your pockets are empty, to feel whole while your body is aching, to feel loved while you are alone, and to hold that feeling as your truth. Creation is finished. You are not creating the new state. You are selecting it. It exists now, just as every station exists on a frequency. Tune the dial of your mind, and the new reality emerges. Not because it was built in that moment, but because it was revealed. You are a spiritual tuner, not a physical builder. Your assumptions are the dial. So ignore what is, not because you're naive, but because you're wise. The present facts are nothing more than past assumptions crystallized. They are echoes, not commands. Take your attention off the echo and return it to the sound. Withdraw from the noise of the visible and retreat into the sanctuary of your imagination. There, in silence, assume the highest. Rest in it. Dwell in it. Let that be your only truth. Your current reality is just a reflection of past assumptions. Ignore it. Everything you see around you right now, every circumstance, every situation, every limitation, is nothing but the outpicturing of your previous inner conversations. The world is not happening to you, it is happening from you. You are always assuming, whether consciously or unconsciously, and those assumptions set the mold through which your experiences must pass. What appears in your life is not the result of the outer forces acting independently. It is the echo of your inner state, the residue of former beliefs hardened into fact. And because it is rooted in the past, it is no longer relevant to the now. The moment you recognize this, you realize that reacting to what is the surest way to recreate it. You must develop the discipline of turning away from appearances. To ignore reality does not mean to resist it, fight it, or pretend it does not exist. It means you acknowledge it as the effect, not the cause. You understand it to be outdated. The truth of who you are and what your life can be is not written in the facts surrounding you. It is written in the assumptions you now choose to accept. When you see lack, limitation, failure, or delay, you must remind yourself, this is simply old news. It's a manifestation of my previous state of consciousness. And if I don't feed it with attention, if I don't emotionally engage with it, it will fade like smoke in the wind. The world is a mirror, but most people try to change the reflection instead of changing the face. If you stand before a mirror and frown, the reflection frowns back. You cannot demand that the image smiles unless you smile first. In the same way, your reality cannot change until you assume a new inner posture. When you look at the facts and believe them to be unchangeable, you give them permanence. You make them your God. But if you look beyond them, if you dare to look inward and accept a higher version of yourself, you begin the process of transformation. Ignoring reality requires courage because everything around you will demand your agreement. The bank account may say you are broke. The body may say you are sick. The phone may remain silent. The opportunities may seem non-existent. But your task is to stay faithful not to the world, but to your vision. To assume that you are prosperous, healthy, loved, and fulfilled, even when nothing gives evidence to support it. That is the test. That is the art of living from the end. What keeps people trapped is the unconscious belief that what they see is more powerful than what they imagine. But the opposite is true. Imagination is the root, the physical is the fruit. The moment you stop identifying with what's outside and begin identifying with what's inside, you reclaim your authority. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become a creator of experience. But this shift requires you to ignore what is, and that is where most falter. They continue to check the world to see if anything has changed. And by doing so, they strengthen the very condition they wish to escape. When you no longer allow your senses to dictate your assumptions, you become free. You stop living by reaction and begin living by creation. You realize that everything you feel, believe, and assume inwardly is planting a seed. That seed will grow, and when it matures, it becomes your world. So if you do not like what is growing, do not curse the garden. Change the seed. The external world is slow to catch up, but it always does. The harvest always comes. It cannot be otherwise. You do not need to analyze your past assumptions or uncover every mistake. All you need to do is assume anew, right now, in this very moment, regardless of what's around you, because now is the only moment that holds power. Now is where you plant, now is where you feel, now is where you change the course of your future. If you want something different, feel something different, and hold to it no matter what. Let the world scream, let the conditions protest. You remain unmoved, because you know what appears is only the result of yesterday's thoughts. And today, you are planting again. The temptation to react will be strong. Reality will wave its arms and beg for your attention. But if you give in, if you start doubting your assumption just because the outer has not yet changed, you uproot your new seed. You dig it up to see if it's growing, and in doing so, you interrupt the process. Patience is not waiting with frustration. It is assuming with faith. It is knowing that once a thing is felt to be true, it is already done in the invisible realm, and the visible will catch up in due time. Reality is nothing but a mirror of consciousness. When you elevate your consciousness by assuming a higher state, the mirror must eventually reflect that elevation. It has no choice. But it doesn't happen instantly. There is always a gestation period, a delay that tests your faith, your ability to persist in assumption, and during that delay you must guard your inner world fiercely. You must become deaf to the old and loyal only to the new, because the old will try to pull you back. It will say, look, nothing has changed. Why keep pretending? But you are not pretending. You are choosing. You are creating. And you must refuse to be ruled by appearances, no matter how convincing they seem. Your only responsibility is to remain faithful to the unseen, to live as if what you desire is already yours, to walk, talk, feel, and move from the end you've imagined. If the world does not yet agree, that is none of your concern. The world is slow clay, and your imagination is the fire. The outer must reshape itself according to your inner flame. This is law, unchanging, immutable. But it only works if you refuse to give the outer power over your mind. So ignore it, not with resentment, not with resistance, but with indifference. With a quiet knowing that the real power lies in what you are assuming to be true, not in what is currently showing up. Feel your way into the desired state and let it become your dwelling place. Live from it, breathe from it. Let your inner world become more vivid, more alive, more meaningful than anything your eyes can see. When you do this, reality will bow to your assumption, for it has no choice but to obey the command of the one who knows their power. Assumption is not denial, it is the act of conscious creation. When you assume something to be true, you are not pretending, nor are you lying to yourself. You are entering into a deeper truth, a reality that is unseen by the outer eye, but fully known to the inner man. To assume the state of your desire is to claim it in full, to accept it without proof, to embody it regardless of what your senses report. The world may tell you it's not real yet, but you are not moved by the world. You are moved by what you choose to believe. Assumption is your power. It is your permission slip to live in the state of your fulfilled desire long before the facts agree with you. When you assume a new identity, you shift the foundation of your reality. All that you experience flows from that state. You do not need to wait for life to give you permission to feel differently. You give yourself permission. You become the author and not the reader. The majority wait for change before they assume the new role, but that is not how this law works. You must first feel it, know it, live in it internally. Then the world arranges itself to reflect that state. That is the creative act. Not by effort, not by force, but by feeling and belief. To live by assumption is to trust the unseen, to move into the world of cause rather than stay trapped in the world of effects. The senses are slow. They can only reflect what has already been accepted within. So when you use your imagination to assume the state you desire, you are not denying reality, you are declaring a higher one. You are choosing to live from a deeper intelligence, one that understands the true nature of creation. Expansion bypasses logic, dismisses limitation, and moves in the realm of what is possible, not what has already been. If you wish to experience wealth, you must assume the consciousness of abundance before the money shows up. If you desire health, you must feel the joy and strength of being well, even when the body says otherwise. If you long for love, you must dwell in the knowing that you are already cherished, already chosen, already deeply connected. This is not wishful thinking. This is creation by spiritual law. The assumption made in full conviction becomes fact, not through effort, not through time, but through alignment with that state. To assume is to accept, not with struggle, but with ease. You don't have to figure out how it will come. You don't need to know who will make it happen. Your task is not to micromanage the bridge of incidents. Your only job is to wear the new state like a second skin, to feel it, dwell in it, and allow it to saturate your thoughts, words, and reactions. This inward shift moves energy. It organizes the invisible forces of life to support your conviction. People, events, and circumstances will appear to play their roles, but they are merely props responding to the main actor, you. Many misunderstand assumption. They think it is some mental trick, a fragile fantasy to be whispered in the dark. But true assumption is firm, bold, and complete. It does not ask for evidence. It gives evidence to the unseen. It doesn't request permission from the world. It claims dominion over it. The moment you assume something fully, without contradiction, the outer world must conform, not because of superstition, but because you have aligned yourself with the truth of your desire. You are always assuming something. Every emotion, every thought, every reaction is built on an assumption about who you are and what is possible. If you feel inferior, it is because you've assumed you are less than. If you feel fear, you've assumed there is something to be afraid of. If you feel stuck, you've assumed there is no way forward. And life, being the mirror it is, reflects those assumptions back to you as experience. So to change your world, you do not need to beg, strive, or seek approval. You need only to choose a new assumption and believe in it more than the old one. Assumption is an act of inner alignment. It is you saying, this is who I am now, regardless of the past, regardless of the facts. And when you persist in that identity, everything around you begins to reorganize. The people you meet, the opportunities you encounter, even the thoughts that cross your mind, all begin to reflect your new self-concept. The world cannot help but mirror your inner stance. That is its law, that is its nature. The difference between wishing and assuming is certainty. Wishing keeps your desire in the future. Assuming brings it into the now. Wishing says, I hope it happens. Assuming says it already has. That shift in awareness is everything. The wishful thinker waits. The one who assumes lives it now. The one who assumes walks in the knowing that what is felt as real in imagination must objectify in the world. Not maybe, not hopefully, it must. This inner certainty creates movement in the unseen realm. It activates pathways you could not predict, orchestrates meetings you could never plan, and unfolds outcomes that surpass logic. But all of it begins in assumption, not as a passing thought, but as a dwelling state. When you assume something long enough, it becomes natural. When it becomes natural, it becomes inevitable. The world, slow and obedient, begins to shape itself to your conviction. The beauty of assumption is that it places all the power back in your hands. You do not need to change people. You do not need to wait for perfect timing. You do not need to fix the outer world. All you must do is select your desire, accept it as your reality, and feel from it until it becomes your atmosphere, until it colors every word, every movement, every dream. This is how miracles unfold. Quietly, inwardly, then all at once. You are not being dishonest when you assume something that hasn't yet materialized. You are being loyal to your higher self. You are trusting that what you feel and accept within must be outpictured in time. You are honoring the divine gift of imagination, which was given to you not to escape reality, but to create it. Every great life begins in the unseen. Every change begins with a new assumption. Every transformation starts with someone daring to believe differently. You are not required to explain your assumptions. You are not obligated to convince anyone. The world doesn't need to approve. It only needs to respond, and it will, when you persist without doubt. When you feel from your new state and let it be more real than the facts that surround you. You become magnetic to its manifestation. The world is not blind. It is responsive, and it always gives form to what you accept as true. So assume freely, assume boldly, assume lovingly, not with anxiety, but with peace. You don't need to try harder. You only need to live as though it is already done. The world will catch up, for it always does. Persistence in assumption overrides the evidence of the senses. The outer world is slow and sluggish compared to the speed of your imagination. Your senses are wired to reflect what already is, not what is becoming. If you rely on what you see, hear, and feel to determine your beliefs, you will forever be stuck in a cycle of repetition. But when you persist in your assumption, holding it to be real, regardless of what your senses report, you begin to exercise the divine power within you. You begin to call into being that which is not yet visible, and in time what you assumed with feeling must manifest. It is easy to assume something once or twice and then give up when nothing appears to change. But that is not persistence. That is wishful thinking interrupted by doubt. To persist is to remain loyal to the unseen reality. It is to wake up each morning and walk in your desired state. It is to move through your day with the inner certainty that what you have assumed is already true. You do not look outside to confirm it. You hold it within until the outer world has no choice but to rearrange itself. Persistence is not force. It is not struggle. It is quiet, unwavering conviction. It is the steady refusal to be moved by appearances. You may be surrounded by every form of contradiction, but still you remain rooted in your chosen assumption. That is where the shift begins. Life doesn't change just because you had a moment of belief. It changes because you sustained it, because you stayed faithful when everything told you not to be. There will be moments when the world seems to mock your assumption. It may appear as if things are getting worse, not better. This is the test. The old story is being pushed out, and sometimes it resists. But if you waver now, if you fall back into fear or start searching the world for proof, you undo the work you've done. You must persist until your assumption becomes your dwelling place, your new natural. The state you assumed must become so familiar that the old state feels like a dream. Persistence is not about time, it is about intensity and consistency of feeling. Some people persist for days, others for years. But time is not the factor that creates. It is the depth of conviction. A single moment of pure assumption can bring about miraculous change, but only if it is followed by unwavering faith. Most people assume for a short while and then return to their old identity. They allow fear, doubt, and evidence to shake them loose from the new state. But the one who persists, no matter what, is the one who reshapes reality. You are not battling the world, you are battling your own memory. The old beliefs, the old patterns, the old self-image will try to pull you back, but you must refuse to identify with them. They are not who you are now. You are the one who is rich, healthy, loved, successful, free. That is the version of you that must be honored. Every time you persist in assuming that identity, you carve it deeper into your subconscious, and eventually it becomes automatic. You think from it without effort. You respond from it without hesitation. That is when the outer world must bow. Persistence is the anchor of creation. Without it, you drift between possibilities. With it, you bring the unseen into form. You don't need to affirm something every hour, nor do you need to obsess over results. What you need is deep, emotional acceptance of your desired state, and the willingness to return to it when you waver. The mind will try to reason, the senses will scream, but your assumption, carried through with persistence, silences them all. The greatest acts of transformation do not happen through force, but through quiet persistence. The world has no choice when met with unwavering belief. Every condition that seems fixed is simply the shadow of a former state. The moment you no longer consent to it, it begins to dissolve, but it may not go willingly. It may linger and push back. Still, you persist. You don't react. You don't complain. You return to the state you have chosen and remain there. This is the true meaning of faith. To remain in a state even when everything around you denies it. To stand still within while the storm rages without. To see beyond the senses and feel from a reality that has not yet appeared. That kind of persistence is power, and once it is developed, nothing is out of reach. You can become anyone, do anything, have anything, not because the world allows it, but because you do. To persist means to build the feeling of fulfillment into your nervous system. You walk through life as though it is already yours. You give thanks for what you cannot yet see. You respond to situations not from who you were, but from who you have assumed yourself to be. You do not slip into lack, fear, or defeat because you no longer identify with those states. They may appear, but you no longer give them power. At first, this practice may feel artificial. You may feel like you're pretending. That is only because your subconscious is still aligned with the old story. But the more you persist, the more your inner state begins to shift. The lines between imagination and reality begin to blur. What once felt like fantasy begins to feel like memory. And when that tipping point is reached, when the assumption feels real, the outer world begins to reflect it back. Persistence is love in action. It is devotion to your chosen state. It is self-loyalty. The world will try to convince you to give it up, to be realistic, to settle. But you will know better. You will know that the law responds not to effort, but to assumption sustained. Not to desire, but to belief held firm. When you persist, you move beyond the need for external permission. You declare, I am, and because I am, it is. And so you go on. Not looking for signs, not asking for confirmation, but living in the end, remaining faithful to your assumption when nothing agrees with it. That is the bridge, that is the power. That is how the invisible becomes visible, not with struggle, but with stillness, not with panic, but with persistence. You are not creating a new reality, you are tuning into it. Every possibility you can imagine already exists in the infinite field of consciousness. There is no future event waiting to be constructed, no dream that needs to be built from the ground up. Everything already is. Creation is finished. All states, all outcomes, all identities exist now in the eternal present. When you understand this, you stop trying to make things happen and instead begin to align yourself with what already is. You shift your focus, your frequency, your awareness. And by doing so, you tune into a new reality just as effortlessly as turning a dial on a radio. There are countless versions of you, each living in a different state of being, each experiencing a different life. The you who is successful already exists. The you who is loved deeply, financially free, vibrant in health, joyful, fulfilled, spiritually aware, All of these versions are alive in potential, waiting to be embodied. You don't bring them into being through effort or wishful thinking. You enter into them by tuning your mind and emotions to their frequency. You assume their reality is your own and allow your outer world to mirror that assumption. When you tune a radio, you do not create the station, you simply select it. You don't build the music, you find the vibration that is already broadcasting. The same is true of your consciousness. Your mind is the receiver, your imagination is the dial, and your assumption is the act of selection. When you feel yourself into a new state and persist in that feeling, you are tuning yourself to that version of reality. You are aligning with it. And because consciousness is the only cause, the outer world must respond accordingly. Not because you forced it, but because you found the frequency and became it. This is why you must ignore appearances. What you see is only the result of your current tuning. If you don't like the broadcast, you don't shout at the radio, you turn the dial. The world is not your master. It is your servant. It plays back to you whatever you are inwardly vibrating. So if you're tired of lack, don't fight it. Don't try to fix it. Simply shift into the state of abundance. Feel yourself prosperous now. If you feel unloved, don't plead for attention. Move into the state where you are cherished, valued, adored. Walk in that feeling, and the world will show you what you've claimed. This tuning is not mental repetition. It's not about saying the right words or thinking positive thoughts while still feeling the same lack inside. It's about embodying the new state with such clarity and feeling that it becomes your new home. You live from it, not toward it. You walk, speak, breathe, and respond from the place where it is already done. And because reality is a mirror, because the universe cannot reflect what you have not assumed, it must bring to you the world that matches your inner stance. You do not need to know how the shift will occur. You do not need to plan the steps or analyze the journey. Your role is not to manufacture the outcome, but to align with it. The how belongs to the unseen. Your assumption sets things in motion. The moment you occupy the state, unseen forces begin to move. People show up. Opportunities open. Doors unlock that were once invisible. You didn't create them. They were always there, waiting for you to match their frequency. You see your job is to remain in tune with the new state, to not return to the static of the old self. This is why feeling is so important. Feeling is the language of the subconscious, and the subconscious runs your entire reality. It does not respond to words or logic, it responds to what you accept as real. So when you tune yourself to a new state, you must feel its reality. You must imagine not as a distant dream, but as something happening now. It must become natural to you. The more real it feels within, the more inevitable it becomes without. What you experience in your world will always match what you believe about yourself. Tuning is an act of inner faith. It means you are willing to believe in the unseen more than the seen. It means you understand that your true environment is not what's outside, but what's within. Your dominant state of consciousness is the only reality that matters, because it is from that state that everything else arises. If you feel wealthy, the outer must eventually reflect wealth. If you feel chosen, you will be chosen. If you feel free, your circumstances will make way for that freedom. Life is your echo. What you send out in consciousness, it sends back in form. This is not a philosophy, it is law, immutable, precise, impersonal. It works for all, regardless of circumstance. The one who tunes in, persists, and refuses to be shaken by appearances is the one who sees results. The one who shifts into their ideal and refuses to shift back, no matter what the senses report, is the one who changes their world. Not by force, not by effort, but by alignment. The inner alignment makes outer change inevitable. Your tuning is your declaration. Every time you return to the state of your wish fulfilled, you are saying to life, "This is who I am now." And life responds not with indifference, but with precision. It delivers not what you want, but what you embody. So you must live the state now. You must breathe it, feel it, dwell in it until it becomes more familiar than the current facts, until it becomes your new normal. And when that happens, when you truly occupy the state without contradiction, the outer world must show you what you've tuned into. You are not asking the world for permission, you are not seeking validation, you are simply tuning your consciousness to the frequency of what you desire, and knowing that in doing so, the desired state becomes yours. You are not pushing against the world, you are selecting a new one, a higher one, a more loving, joyful, abundant one. And by your persistent attention to this new station of being, you become the vessel through which it comes into form, not because you fought for it, but because you aligned with it. The world responds not to desire, but to identity. You do not get what you want simply because you want it. You receive what aligns with who you believe you are. Desire alone is not enough. Longing, hoping, wishing, these are all passive states that acknowledge a separation between you and your desire. Identity, on the other hand, is a state of being. It is the inner declaration that what you have imagined is already true. When you assume the identity of the person who has already received, already become, already fulfilled the desire, you shift everything. Life does not respond to what you say you want, it mirrors what you embody as your truth. This is why so many people remain stuck. They want to be successful, yet continue to identify with struggle. They want to be loved, but still feel unworthy. They want abundance, but they carry the consciousness of lack. The outer world is not being cruel or withholding. It is being obedient. It is reflecting your inner state back to you in perfect fidelity. If you feel separate from your desire, life will keep that separation alive. But the moment you claim the state of already having it, already being it, the separation dissolves, and the outer must conform. Identity is the secret. You must become the one who already has. You must walk, speak, breathe, and feel from the place where the desire is no longer a question, but a reality. You must see yourself not as someone trying to attract the experience, but as the person who is living it. This shift is not intellectual. It is emotional. It is energetic. It happens in the way you talk to yourself, the way you carry yourself, the way you respond to life. It is a full embodiment of the desired state. You are not here to chase your dreams. You are here to awaken to the version of yourself who is already living them. That version exists now. There is no future moment where you will suddenly become deserving, ready, or complete. There is only now, and the choice to assume the identity of your fulfilled self. When you do this sincerely, without contradiction, you activate the law. You begin to live from the end, and the end moves toward you. To feel from the state of the wish fulfilled is to assume the identity that matches it. If you desire wealth, how would the wealthy version of you feel, think, speak, decide? If you desire love, how would the loved version of you carry yourself, move through the world, relate to others? That version of you is not far. It is a shift in perception, a new self-concept. It is the choice to discard the old self-image and step into a higher one. This is not arrogance. It is spiritual alignment. It is you declaring that you are no longer bound by the limitations of the past. You are no longer defined by what has been. You are defined by what you now choose to be. And the moment you step into that new identity, life begins to mirror it. It may not be instant. There may be a delay, but the outer must eventually reflect the inner state. It is law. When you make your identity sacred, everything changes. No longer do you beg for change or plead for better circumstances. You simply become the one who lives in the new reality. And by doing so, you stop contradicting your desire. You stop affirming the lack of it. You stop reacting from the old state. You move in silence, in confidence, in certainty. You become unavailable to the past and fully available to the future you've already claimed. This process is not mechanical. It cannot be faked. You cannot say affirmations from a place of fear and expect transformation. You must feel them as true. You must internalize the new state so completely that the old version of you no longer fits. You cannot go back to the old conversations, the old reactions, the old stories. They no longer belong to you. Your new identity calls for new thoughts, new emotions, new responses. You must choose the identity of the version of you who has already received what you desire, and stay there. Not visit it occasionally, but dwell in it. Make it your home. Let it become more familiar than the old story. When the old thoughts arise, when fear or doubt returns, you remind yourself who you now are. You gently shift back into your true state. This is not repression, it is remembrance. You are remembering your power, your truth, your wholeness. Desire without identity is like trying to start a fire with wet wood. It may spark, but it won't catch. Identity is the fuel. It is the foundation that gives your desire form. When you identify with the state of your fulfilled desire, your thoughts begin to align, your body language changes, your decisions shift, and your entire reality begins to reorganize. Life does not argue with identity, it mirrors it. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to control every thought. But you do need to be committed. Committed to the new version of yourself, loyal to it, protective of it. You must choose it again and again until it no longer feels like a choice, but simply who you are. This is the work. Not striving, not forcing, but surrendering to the version of you that already exists in fullness and letting the world catch up. So many remain in cycles of lack and disappointment, not because they lack talent or support or opportunity, but because they are still identifying with the version of themselves that doesn't have. And as long as that identity is dominant, the outer world must continue to reflect it. This is not punishment, it is precision. It is the perfect law in motion, always giving back what you send out through the vibration of your being. You are not here to chase reality. You are here to declare it, to own it from within and allow it to crystallize in the world of form. The more you live from the identity of your desired state, the faster the bridge of incidents unfolds. You begin to take actions naturally aligned with your new self. People respond to you differently. Events shift in your favor. Coincidences multiply. But all of it begins with identity. You are not separate from what you seek. You are it. You are not lacking your desire. You are lacking the alignment with the self that has it. And once you make that shift, once you claim the new state as your own, the desire no longer feels distant, it feels done. And when it feels done, it must become real, because the world cannot help but follow the one who knows who they are. If you would only dare to believe that you already are the one they seek, everything around you would bend to mirror that truth. You don't become what you want, you become what you assume. So assume it now. Walk into the room as if the very air is aware of your value. Speak, not with arrogance, but with certainty. The kind that flows from knowing your place in the grand play of life is not random. It is chosen. And you are the one who chose it. There is no power outside of you orchestrating the roles you're allowed to play. The only script that matters is the one you write within. The inner speech, the inner scene, the inner stance. When you wear the feeling of already being the one they seek, you activate laws unseen by the eye but deeply felt by the heart, and the outer world responds obediently, inevitably. It's not about performing or pretending, it's about embodying. You must feel it real. You must sit with the idea of already being chosen, already being admired, already being in demand. And you must do this not once or twice, but until it saturates your subconscious, until you can no longer think of yourself in any other way. Not because you're trying to convince the world, but because you are now convinced within. Think of yourself not as the seeker, but as the sought after. Not as someone waiting for validation, but as the origin of it. Feel the vibration of already being seen, already being recognized, already being loved, and let that feeling become more familiar than your old story. You are not the effect, you are the cause. You are not waiting for the doors to open, you are the door. What would it feel like to be the one they talk about when you leave the room? What would it feel like to be the one they look for in a crowd? You don't need to question whether it's possible. You only need to dwell in the assumption long enough for it to harden into fact. Let the world play catch-up to your inner reality. Act not from desperation, but from completion. If you persist in this state, if you walk, breathe, and respond from the knowing that you are already the one they seek, the world has no choice but to prove you right. The foundation of this speech rests on the timeless truth that assumption creates reality. This is not wishful thinking. It is the law by which the unseen becomes seen, the imagined becomes experienced, and the internal becomes external. Everything you experience in your outer world is nothing more than a mirror reflecting back to you the assumptions you hold about yourself and your relationship to life. Most people live as though life happens to them, reacting to what they see and feel on the outside. But the truth is, the world you move through is a shadow cast by the light of your own consciousness. If you assume you are overlooked, unimportant, or not enough, life will continuously reflect circumstances and interactions that reinforce that belief. But the moment you change your assumption to one of worthiness, visibility, and value, the reflection must change, because it cannot contradict the source. Assumption is not merely thinking positively or hoping things will go your way. It is a deep inner conviction that what you imagine is already true, regardless of what your senses report. Your five senses may scream otherwise. Your bank account may disagree. Your relationships may still feel incomplete. But when you persist in the assumption that you are already who you desire to be, reality begins to bend around your new inner stance. The outer world may delay in catching up, but it must catch up because the source has shifted. The blueprint from which reality is shaped has changed. You are always assuming something. There is no neutral ground. Even doubt is an assumption. Fear is an assumption. Hope, when not rooted in faith, can even be an assumption of lack. So the key is not whether you are assuming, it is what you are assuming. When you begin to assume you are the one they seek, everything transforms. Not because they have changed, but because you have. You are no longer radiating the frequency of longing or chasing or needing. You are now radiating the energy of completeness, confidence, and silent knowing. That energy is magnetic. It draws to you people, circumstances, and experiences that match its frequency. To assume is to accept a new reality inwardly and live from it mentally and emotionally before any outer evidence arrives. This requires a level of imagination that goes beyond fantasy and taps into creative power. The same power that designed the stars and orchestrates the rhythm of the seasons flows through you. When you imagine yourself as the one they seek, and you do so repeatedly with feeling and belief, you are not pretending, you are planting the seed. And every seed, when nurtured by faith and repetition, must sprout. There is no need to ask for permission from the world. You do not need confirmation or agreement from others. The only agreement that matters is the one you make with yourself. That from this moment forward you walk, speak, and live as the one who is already chosen, desired, admired. This is not arrogance, it is spiritual authority. It is the understanding that you are a creator, not a victim of circumstances. The assumption that you are not yet enough, not yet seen, not yet ready. Those are the illusions you have been living under. And illusions fall apart the moment you stop feeding them with belief. The process of changing assumption is not a one-time decision. It is a disciplined practice. You must return to it again and again, especially when your outer world appears to contradict it. You must override the temptation to judge by appearances and instead judge by the truth you have chosen to internalize. If you assume you are the one they seek, you begin to notice new patterns. People treat you differently. Opportunities seem to emerge without effort, not because you forced them into being, but because they were always waiting for your recognition. The change within unlocks the unseen doors around you. This principle does not only apply to relationships or admiration, it applies to every area of life. Assume you are already healthy. Assume you are already abundant. Assume you are already wise. These assumptions, when felt deeply, reorganize the energies around you. They awaken dormant potentials within you. They create a resonance that aligns you with the very things you once thought were far away. You no longer act from a place of striving. You act from a place of having. This changes everything. You do not need to explain your new assumption to anyone. You do not need to justify it or make it logical. The world is not moved by logic. It is moved by belief. When you believe something so deeply that you begin to live from it, the world conforms. It cannot help but conform. That is the nature of the law. That is the secret the mystics, prophets, and visionaries have always known. Not that reality is fixed, but that it is fluid, malleable to the one who dares to believe it already is. What you assume becomes a command to the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind has no sense of humor, no sense of judgment. It simply accepts. It receives what you persistently feel as true and sets the machinery of your life in motion to match that inner acceptance. This is why it is so vital to assume wisely, to feel deliberately, to imagine boldly. You are not at the mercy of chance. You are shaping your experience with every thought, soaked in emotion, with every mental scene that you revisit often enough to feel real. So if you would truly transform your life, stop asking, how can I get them to see me? And start living from the answer, I am the one they seek. Carry yourself with that awareness. Sit with that energy. Let it be the backdrop of every conversation, every decision, every step. It may feel unfamiliar at first. That is only because you've been practicing a different assumption for too long. But the new one is just as available, just as accessible, and far more aligned with your true nature. You do not need to wait for proof. You are the proof. Your state of consciousness is the cause. Assume it now, feel it now, and the world will follow. It must. To act as if you are the one they seek is not about pretending or putting on a show for the world. It's about entering into a deeper state of embodiment, a state where you no longer chase the identity you desire, but you become it from within. You do not reach for it, you rest in it. Embodiment is the secret. It is the invisible shift that changes everything without needing to force or prove anything on the outside. Pretending is shallow. It wears thin. It is driven by fear and the need for external approval, but true embodiment is internal, calm, unshakable, and it doesn't waver based on whether anyone else notices or responds. To embody is to become. It means you carry the vibration of your chosen identity so fully that even when no one else acknowledges it, you still know it's true. You walk with it, you speak from it, you think in alignment with it, you respond to life as though that version of you has already been born. And in truth, it has. The moment you accept it within, it begins to live through you. There is no need to manipulate your surroundings or adjust your behavior to gain favor. When you are it, the world bends to reflect it. Many people try to fake confidence, hoping it will eventually turn real. But faking is born from the belief that you are not yet that person. It still holds the vibration of lack and longing. It says, if I act this way, maybe I will be accepted. But the body cannot lie. The energy you carry speaks louder than words, louder than actions. If your mind is pretending, but your heart is uncertain, the signal you emit will still be one of doubt. The power lies not in mimicry, but in alignment. When your inner state is in harmony with your desired identity, there is no effort, there is no performance. This is not about arrogance or domination. Embodiment has nothing to prove. It is quiet, certain, and magnetic. It does not chase. It does not compete. It simply is. Think of someone who enters a room and instantly draws attention, not because they're loud or demanding, but because there's something about their energy that feels whole, complete, settled. That is embodiment. They are not trying to be liked. They are not asking to be seen. They are seen because they have already seen themselves. You don't need to play games to be noticed when you have already claimed your worth internally. You don't need to over-explain, over-give, or over-perform when your identity is secure. Embodiment replaces striving with stillness. It allows you to move through the world without friction, because the world is now a reflection of your internal shift. It is not about forcing circumstances. It is about allowing them to rearrange around your new self-concept. When you practice embodiment, you begin to feel the difference between acting out of need and acting out of knowing. Need carries tension. Knowing carries ease. Pretending is anxious. Embodiment is grounded. Pretending asks, what do I need to do to be enough? Embodiment affirms, I already am. This internal affirmation, repeated in silence and felt deeply, becomes the soil from which all change blossoms. You no longer need to grasp for signs. You become the sign. You become the signal. You are no longer seeking validation. You are radiating from a space of having already been validated by your own awareness. There is a subtle but powerful distinction between trying to be someone and allowing yourself to become that someone. Trying implies separation. Becoming implies union. When you try to act as if you're confident, you're still entertaining the idea that you're not. But when you feel it from within, even just slightly, and nurture that feeling as if it's your natural state,